User the Third says, can you tell us the recipe to your favorite food dish? Again with a favorite question. Yeah, I don't really have many favorites. I like lasagna. I mean, I don't. It's hard to choose a favorite food. Who can choose a favorite food? That just seems so silly. I was hoping we'd get some stars tonight. You have to look at, but looks like it's not the case. It's going to be cloudy. Well, anyway. Right. Favorite food dish. Well, since I can't pick out... Oh, there's some stars. Since I can't pick a favorite food, of the healthy entree type, I will tell you what my favorite dessert is. And that is a dessert called... it's called gooey butter cake. And I don't know if it's a very commonly known dessert. It's something that my family knows, and I think a few other families in the area where I grew up in know. But you can take a box of yellow cake mix, and I think in the base there's two parts of it that you have to make. There's the base, the crust, and then there's the actual icing. So the crust calls for a box of yellow cake mix, one egg. I think it's one egg. And oh god, what's the third ingredient in the crust? There's 3 ingredients in the crust. I can't remember. Well, hang on. I'll go through the rest of it. Maybe I'll think of it. It's a box of yellow cake mix, an egg. You mix it all together, and then you smush it into the bottom of a 9x12 or whatever cake pan. And then in the mixing bowl that you just used, you mix together 8 ounces of cream cheese, 2 more eggs, and the recipe calls for a pound of powdered sugar. It makes it really, really rich. I've used as little as a half pound of powdered sugar, and it still tastes fine. So I would recommend using less than a pound. I'd recommend using a half pound. But anyway, 8 ounces of cream cheese, 2 eggs, and a half pound of powdered sugar. You mix that all together, and then you pour that on top of the crust that you've mushed into the cake pan. And then you bake it at, I think it's 350 for 45 minutes. And you will get a really tasty, really sweet bar, basically. It almost looks like a lemon bar. But it's not. It's not, lemon tasting at all. But it's really good. It's called gooey butter cake, and it's like candied crack cocaine. It's incredibly addictive and really tasty. So that's my favorite food dish, I'd have to say. Favorite dessert. Let's see. User C4Z says, congrats, and please don't get spoiled when you reach a high subscribers number like a lot of big YouTubers did. Like, switch to Minecraft or Happy Wheels and start skipping days, celebrating your YouTube partnership, and counting on your blindly loyal subscribers to keep supporting you, even if you completely stop caring about the quality of your videos. I will eat my laptop if you do so. With that said, keep up the good work. You'll notice that's not a question, but I appreciate it all the same. I appreciate the sentiment, because that tells me that I'm doing something right. And I can tell you right now, barring, one of my family members ending up in a coma and me being unemployed or something, you'll never see me in a partnership, and I will always try to put 1 video up per day. For the longest time I was thinking, maybe I could do 2 Let's Plays at a time, do a role-playing Let's Play and a strategy game Let's Play. But for now I'm just going to stick with the Skyrim Let's Play so that I don't overwhelm myself. I don't have as much time to devote to recording as I think maybe some Let's Players do. Not trying to make a statement about them or about myself, just telling you what I've observed. So I think maybe if I'm going to try not to overwork myself and keep it at a manageable 1 video per day, something between 15 and 25 minutes. And I think that if that's the case, I can manage it and not burn out or not lose, not run out of time to do it. So C4Z, I appreciate the sentiment, and I can guarantee you I will do whatever I can to not tread down that dangerous, dark path you described. User Patrick Reisbeck says, I've one question. Where are you from? I don't hear any dialect or specific slang to be able to recognize it. It's a nearly perfect common English. Salud, in your commentary section, would point me to France. Another one. Would you mind to do a stream in the evening on Twitch or another streaming portal? To answer your second question first, I would consider doing streaming. As I just described, though, I don't have a ton of time for recording. And I don't have a ton of time where I wouldn't be interrupted, which streaming requires absolutely no interruptions. Let's Playing, you can be interrupted and just kind of pause the recording and go on from there when the interruption is over. Streaming, you can't afford to be interrupted, which for me is a little bit difficult because I live in a household of 4 people who would be constantly needing my help unless they're asleep, so yeah, I would consider doing a stream, but it would need to be a stream when I could guarantee I wouldn't be interrupted, and it would not be a stream I would do on a weeknight because I'm in the States, and anybody that's watching in Europe or anywhere else would be... I would have to... If I was going to do a stream on a weeknight, it would have to be in the evening, obviously, because I work during the day, which would mean that anybody overseas who wanted to watch it would be midnight or later for them, right? So that wouldn't really work. So if I was going to do a stream, it would be on a Saturday in the afternoon or a Sunday in the afternoon, so that somebody that was not in the States could watch it while it was going on. So I'm, without meaning to, I'm placing quite a few constraints on myself. So there's a lot of reasons why a stream would be really difficult for me to do. I would totally do it if it worked out, but I don't see those circumstances aligning right away anytime soon, for now-ish, I guess. To answer your first question, where I'm from, you said in the commentary section the word salud would point me to France. You could be more wrong, certainly. You could have said I was from India or something, but no, I'm not from Europe. I'm from the United States. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in a city, St. Louis, Missouri, where the Anheuser-Busch Brewery is, and I lived for a long time in Chicago, Illinois, and I currently live in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I've lived here now for about 5 months. No, take that back. 3 months. 3 or 4 months. Moved here with family. And that's where I am currently. So yeah, purely in the Midwest, purely in the United States. I do happen to have the luxury or curse, I guess, of having both a mother and a grandmother who are concerned with perfect grammar. So I spent a lot of time correcting myself when they were around. So I guess if you think that I have perfect English, I appreciate it. It's entirely due to having anal retentive family members around. Okay, moving on. Let's see. User Taylor Lynn asks, what is the craziest thing you have ever done? Well, craziest is a word that can be defined a couple different ways, right? Like you could say, what's the most dangerous thing you've ever done? What's the stupidest thing you've ever done? What's the bravest thing you've ever done? Craziest thing I've ever done. I mean, I was a Boy Scout, right? Like, I was a Boy Scout, so crazy was not really a thing that I did. I was kind of conservative as a kid, and yeah, I drank and did stupid things, but nothing that was like crazy, like holy shit, I can't believe I did that. It was way more measured than that, I guess, which is kind of lame, but that's, it's dawn already. Wow, that was fast. But that's just kind of how I was, I guess, kind of a lame kid. But yeah, crazy. Okay, so the most dangerous thing I ever did was something I didn't realize was dangerous till after I had done it, or rather while I was doing it. 2007, so a few years ago now. Oh, hang on 1 second. Sorry everyone, warned you about interruptions. Anyway, 2007, I traveled overseas for the first time in my life to Spain and Morocco and Portugal. And while we were in Morocco, my friends and I we visited Tangier first, which was fantastic. Then we visited Marrakesh, which was also fantastic. I think Marrakesh was my favorite place to visit on the whole trip. No, second favorite after Madrid. Marrakesh was awesome. And then after Marrakesh, we took a bus over the Atlas Mountains to a town in the, I mean, it was still in Morocco, but it was in the Sahara, like full-on desert, called Ouarzazate. Ourzazate, I think is how it's spelled, if you want to look it up. A couple of different major motion pictures have been filmed there because it's got kind of a old, like, Palestinian type of vibe to it. The Last Temptation of Christ was filmed around there, I think, and some scenes from The Life of Brian were filmed around there. You know, like basically any movie that takes place in like old Palestine. It's a good chance that some of it was filmed near Ouarzazate. But anyway, so we took a bus from Marrakesh over the Atlas Mountains to Ouarzazate, and that was probably the most dangerous thing I ever did. The bus ride, I mean, because the road was wide enough for about 1.5 cars, and it was a two-way road. And it was, like I said, winding through the mountains, and there were very, very few guardrails. There was no shoulder on the road. And the bus driver, like, he was operating under the assumption that he was the biggest thing on the road, and that if he encountered anybody else, they were just going to have to get out of his way. So we were flying up and down these roads and through the mountains, and it was crazy. And there were sections where there were actually guardrails, like guarding the road from several 100 feet drops, where it was obvious that a previous vehicle, whether it was a bus or a car, had just driven right through the guardrail. Like the guardrail was just blown apart, and somebody just driven right through it, like over the side of the cliff, and just fallen to their deaths. So, so as we were driving this, we're like, oh my God, we're gonna die up here. We're gonna freaking die in the Atlas Mountains in a bus. Needless to say, we made it. We made it towards Ouarzazate safe and sound. But it was a couple of years later, actually, I saw one of my friends that I made this trip with forwarded me a headline on the internet, and the story was that a bus making that same route from Marrakesh to Ouarzazate had plummeted off the side of one of the mountains, and everybody on the bus had died. So my fears were not misplaced when I was making that trip. It was not like I was just being a chicken shit. It was really truly a dangerous route. But that's second world countries for you. That's just kind of crazy. Let's see. Morocco was awesome, by the way. It's absolutely fantastic. Marrakesh in particular was a really great city to visit. Marrakesh and Tangier were my two favorites. We also visited, like I said, Ouarzazate, which was kind of a smaller area because it's out in the desert. We also visited Casablanca, which was not, we were looking forward to that the most because you're like, oh, Casablanca, just like the film, it's going to be romantic, it's going to be crazy. Casablanca was kind of boring. Like, they have a huge mosque there called, it's the Mosque of Hassan II, which was the king, I think the father of the current king of Morocco. And the Hassan II Mosque is, I think, the third largest mosque in the world, behind, like, Mecca and something in Indonesia, maybe? I'm not sure, but I think it's like the second or third largest mosque in the world. It's huge. Like, the thing is so huge that inside of the mosque, like, without touching any of the walls or the ceiling, you could fit the entire Notre Dame Cathedral. That's how large that mosque in Casablanca is. It's absolutely enormous. So it was fascinating to see that, but otherwise Casablanca was kind of a disappointing town. But anyway, that was Morocco. Morocco was awesome. Let's see. Moving on. So that was the most dangerous thing I ever did. The most stupid thing I ever did? I don't know. It was probably having too much to drink when I was a teenager, and like probably driving somewhere that I should not have been driving. You're 17, you're 18, you're stupid, you don't know what the hell you're doing. At least in America. I don't know how it is in Europe or anywhere else, but since drinking isn't allowed here till you're 21, teenage drinkers tend to be really stupid. Like, it's like a anti-authoritarian to drink here, whereas I think maybe in some European countries it's more like you're just kind of used to it because you grew up around it and you drink it when you're younger, so maybe you have a more measured approach to it. I don't know. That's just my exposure seems to indicate that American teenagers drink way more irresponsibly than their counterparts in Europe or elsewhere. I don't know if that's true, but that's just my impression. So that's probably the stupidest thing I've done. I can't think of a particular instance. I wasn't a bad kid, but I'm sure I probably did it at some point. And really, it's very stupid. It's a stupid thing to do. Driving a car on its own is just dangerous. We tend not to think that way because you do it so often, but it's really a pretty deadly thing that you take part in every day. You just don't really think about how dangerous it is. Let's see. If you're talking about craziest in terms of the most brave thing I've ever done, I have a crippling fear of heights. I'm acrophobic to a crazy degree. I don't have a lot of phobias, but acrophobia is one of them. And my dad is well, like I said, I was in the Boy Scouts when I was growing up. As a teenager, I was in the Boy Scouts. And one of the things that the Boy Scouts does, which is one of the bigger draws to the program, is they do like rock climbing and rappelling and ropes courses and things like that. Any of you who are listening who've been in the Boy Scouts, you probably know what I'm talking about. My dad is actually an instructor for rocks and ropes. So he's somebody who's fully trained on how to set someone up to rappel off a cliff or climb up a cliff, and he can belay people and that kind of thing. And so growing up, he would do that kind of thing all the time. He'd take scouts down to the camp near where I lived, and he would basically just, tie them up and throw them off a cliff all day. That's what he called it. I'm going to go throw some kids off a cliff. That is his joking way of saying what he was doing. So anyway, there was a weekend where he was going to go down to the ranch, which is the Boy Scout camp near where I lived, and throw some kids off a cliff, right? And so there was another instructor going with him, whose name was Terry, who was a friend of my dad's. And my dad was like, oh, well, for whatever reason, the group was separated into two groups. And my dad was like, here, take Pem with you. That's not what he called me because that's not actually my real name, but take Pem with you, Terry, and he'll help you get everything set up. He's watched me enough times that he knows what he's doing. He can be an assistant to you, which was good because it's good to have more than one person, observing this kind of thing, because it can be a little dangerous if you've got people who don't know what they're doing. And so anyway, we were at the tops of the cliffs. We were going to do the rappelling, and Terry looked at me and assumed, oh, this is, Pem. This is his dad's an instructor. His dad's an expert. His dad's done this 100 times. And he kind of assumed that I had as well, which was not true. But he basically said, hey, to all the other scouts that were there, hey, we're going to set up for an angel rappel, and Pem here is going to do the first angel rappel to show you how it's done. Now, I had done rappelling and rock climbing up until this point with my dad or with other, scouts. I had never done an angel rappel before, and the reason I'd never done an angel rappel is if you Google it, you'll see why. It's flipping terrifying. It's rappelling, which you see in the movies, like the SWAT team or the military guys do, the Black Ops guys do, like out of the helicopter, the hut down the side of the building or whatever, where they got their butts out and they're kind of holding the rope to the side and they're sliding down. Angel rappelling is that, except you walk face first over the side of the cliff, which you can understand if you're acrophobic why that would be absolutely terrifying to do. It would be way harder to do than just rappelling. Rappelling on its own is hard enough when you're acrophobic. Angel rappelling is like putting a loaded gun in your mouth, basically, is how it feels when you're acrophobic. It's just like, it's insane. It's like playing Russian roulette, it feels like. So Terry looked at me and said this in front of all the other scouts, and I was kind of like, I wasn't going to say no, because then I looked like a chicken shit in front of all the other people. And at that age, I was still very much concerned with what other people thought of me, because I was a teenager, and that's what you think when you're a teenager, right? So he set up the angel rappel, and he tied me up, and he's like, okay, start walking toward the cliff, start walking toward the edge. And if you've never been rappelling, you realize that with the ropes going through the carabiners and the figure eights and everything, there's actually you actually need to put quite a lot of stress on the rope to get it to let you down. Like, there needs to be quite a lot of weight pulling on it. And at the time I was 16 or 17, I probably weighed like 140 pounds, which is not a lot. I was a pretty scrawny kid. And so not only did I have to walk over the edge of this cliff face first to do this angel rappel, but because I was so light, I actually kind of had to lunge over. Like, I had to throw myself forward to get some slack in the rope so that I could keep advancing. It was insane. Like it was the most terrified I've ever been. My legs were shaking. It had to have been obvious to everyone else there how absolutely terrified I was of doing this whole thing. But I was not about to back down because in my mind it was like if I back down, this is, I'll be the laughing stock. I would not have been a laughing stock. Nobody would have cared. I was just some strange kid that nobody knew. But in my head, it had been worked up to this huge thing, and I had to man up and do this thing, and I did it, and I did it. I did it. Somehow I managed to angel rappel and not crap my pants. Anyway, that was a very long, drawn-out story. I'm sorry. A very, very short question. What's the craziest thing you've ever done? And a very, very long answer to it. Let's see. User Multikukri says, what was your first The Elder Scrolls game? Very simple answer. My first game was Oblivion. I knew about Morrowind when it came out, but I did not play it at all when it came out, because like I said, I didn't have a system at the time that could handle a game of that type, and it was only afterwards that I was able to buy a system that could handle games that I actually wanted to play. For the longest time I had to forfeit, I had to pass by games that I really wanted to play because my computer couldn't handle it. I was a poor college student, I couldn't afford a better system, and I just had a hand-me-down from somebody else. And so yeah, Oblivion was the first game that I played in the Elder Scrolls series. So even though it is of the most recent three, I'd say it's the least loved among fans. Not that it's hated, but it is the least loved, I think. But I do have a special place in my heart for Oblivion. I always feel a certain fondness for it. So I played them in kind of a funky order. I played Oblivion first, then I played Morrowind next, and then I bought Skyrim and played that last. So, but yeah, I mean, since I've gotten the Elder Scrolls games, I've sunk a ton of hours into them, and they've been the games that I've played the most, I think, since I got my new computer. So, and like I said, I mean, I printed out a freaking book of the lore and just read it on the train. So, I totally nerded myself out when it comes to the Elder Scrolls. User Ashley Coivisto has quite a few questions for me. I'll go through them first. Number 1, what is your favorite food? Number 2, what is your favorite beverage? Number 3, are you a fan of the WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment? Number 4, who or what inspired you to make Let's Plays? Number 5, what was your favorite television show as a kid? And then she, I'm assuming her name is Ashley, although Ashley I guess could be a boy's name, appends it with, I'm sorry, I couldn't resist asking a few more questions. What's your favorite movie? Are you a dog person or a cat person? I guess that's it. Right. So number 1, what's your favorite food? I already described what my favorite dessert recipe was. My favorite food, I think I'd have to say potatoes, probably. I love mashed potatoes as a kid. I love baked potatoes now. French fries are always a big hit with me. So potatoes, I guess? That's kind of a simple answer, too. Favorite beverage? If we're talking non-alcoholic, I'd probably say chocolate milk. I love chocolate milk. Talking alcoholic, probably red wine. If I'm ever drinking during a video, if you ever hear me going, ah, or if I mention that I've been drinking, it's probably in red wine. I particularly like Malbec. I have a thing for Argentinian wines. I don't necessarily know that it's so much that I like them that for themselves, or if I like them because they're Argentinian. I don't know, it just kind of sounds like, ooh, Argentinian wine, like, ooh, I drink Argentinian wines only. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of a twittish thing to think like, ooh, Argentinian, but that is, I don't know. I do like Argentinian wines, Malbec especially. I think. I think maybe my affinity for Argentina comes from reading Jorge Luis Borges. I don't know if any of you have ever read him. If you have, I'm hoping that you'll understand what I'm talking about. He's an incredible writer, like just amazing. And especially from like a fantasy/sci-fi kind of nerdy perspective, if you like those kinds of things, I think you will love Borges. He writes about great, like, labyrinths and like what would happen if, and all kinds of like really just great stories, fantastic stories. So I really recommend him if you don't know of him previously. Jorge Luis Borges. And Argentinian wine. Help yourself to a Malbec. Am I a fan of the World Wrestling Entertainment? No, I'm not. I wanted to be when I was a kid because my classmates were. But I never watched it. My parents didn't really like. My mom was very much like, "Ew, what is this trash?" kind of thing. So I never really watched it as a kid. But I do find it funny. Like I like to watch it because it's funny. Because it's it's a bunch of muscular, sweaty guys being masculine and breathing in each other's faces and grabbing each other, and it's all very, very gay, but not at all conscious that it's gay. I mean, maybe I guess probably it is conscious that it's gay to a degree, but not in the way that it. Nobody in it ever admits like this is totally gay. They totally play it up as like a macho thing, but really it's pretty gay. I don't know. That in itself is kind of funny to me.